struggling to come to grips with reality. Confusion and chaos have become part of me. I seek answers to know where my liberation lies. Only in peace and calmness does that clarity arise. Transmissions of wisdom bring me insights of reason. Let my mind expand to the higher states. My mortality is no longer at stake. Let me hear the wisdom transmissions. The wisdom transmissions. So many voices, so many interpretations. No answers given, only outer temptations. Where can I find that truth inside of me? Realization of what I am is all I'm wanting to see. Transmissions of wisdom bring me insights of reason. Let my mind expand to the higher states. My mortality is no longer at stake. Let me hear the wisdom transmissions. The wisdom transmissions. No more redirection, ending the contemplation. Forget fighting reflection. Outer world's a projection. Internal is the cause, external's an effect, put it on pause. I'm silencing the noise, centering, entering void. Truth is beautifully subtle, the voice without a voice. Heart and mind shall settle, making decisions now, escaping illusions of choice. Transmissions of wisdom bring me insights of reason. Let my mind expand to the higher states. My mortality is no longer at stake. Let me hear the wisdom transmission. The wisdom transmissions.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. In a new location this morning. It's a little bit of activity going on in my other area where I usually do the webcasts. But today I'm downstairs, and of course I'm launching this on a Saturday. Unfortunately, I was not available yesterday to perform the Wisdom Nexus, simply because I've been recovering from a couple of injuries. Right, a couple of weeks ago I had a bit of a swollen right knee. And then, as of late, I've had some swollen toe joints. Now, this actually comes from old diet. It does not come from the new diet. But again, it's from years of eating bad food. And what the alkaline diet is basically doing is now clearing a lot of that debris out of the body. And so during that time, I've had to kind of lay low a little bit, take it easy. I've been kind of just resting mostly. It is starting to feel better, but I've basically been out with injury for a few days. So, again, all these things do happen. It's kind of like a karmic recycling of what I have done to myself over these past, several decades, eating bad food, right? Because even before starting the alkaline diet, I was eating quite a bit of meat, quite a bit. I was eating eggs, I was eating bacon, I was eating sausages. What was my mentality? I just think I couldn't be touched. It doesn't matter, the body can handle it, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And that was an ignorance on my part. And then again, going back a little over about 3.5 weeks, doing the alkaline diet, so many things of my body have improved. But of course, what happens is the lymphatic system, my own lymph system, has been in shambles quite a bit. What happens is it pulls a lot of that gunk from the lymphatic system out of the vital organs, and then puts it into a deposit like a knee joint or a toe joint in that way. And that's exactly what's happening. It's taking all of that kind of sewage debris from the lymphatic system and dumping it into joint spaces. So again, I had that with my knee for 5 days. That went away. And now it's been about 10 days with the toe joints. So I have 2 of my toe joints that are basically swollen up. And that has to do with the lymphatic system, right? But it's coming along. It's being nursed back to health. I'm eating a lot more cleaner, eating a lot more alkaline. So it's getting better. That's why today I'm able to do it. I have more time today. I was feeling better this morning. It's giving myself a little bit of a foot bath as well too, and helping it along. So basically, like I said, my lymphatic system prior to doing my alkaline work was in shambles. It was really, really bad. But again, doing it now for about 3.5 weeks, it's getting a lot better. But again, it has to deposit all of that gunk. It has to deposit all of that lymphatic debris into certain storage containers within the body. And the best storage container from the body's perspective are your joints. So this is almost like having a type of rheumatoid arthritis, a temporary one, but it is very much like arthritis because you can't really move the joint. It's so swollen, right? But you keep taking the alkaline food. You keep taking the teas, you keep taking the decoctions, you give yourself some alkaline foot baths, and it feels good. It works. It helps. So I'm basically cleaning up decades of garbage that I've put into my body. And like I said, I'm not innocent from this whole situation as well too. I have gone through all kinds of harsh diets, even when I was younger, and I'd eat vegetarian as well too. And I was still malnourished. Even if we eat vegan, we're still malnourished. We eat meat, you're really malnourished. Okay? So a lot of the common, mainstream type of diets out there, whether you're carnivore, whether you're keto, whether you're paleo, whether you're vegan, whether you're vegetarian, all of them are still kind of bunk. The reason being is because you're not actually giving your body what it needs, because none of them really focus on minerals and alkalinity. What do they focus on? Oh, calories, carbs, fats, sugars, basically, right? Need to get more healthy fats. No, that's not what it's about at all. It's about minerals. It's about alkaline. It's about electricity. It's about prana. That's what you need, right? So this is something that I've had to realize myself because I was a big spokesperson of keto. I was like, hey, I lost 20 pounds on keto. It feels so good. And then, of course, the after effects of keto, where your entire intestinal tract is inflamed and uric acid is eating away your tissues. You're heavily constipated. You're irritable. You're constantly on the edge. You're in low vitality, right? So again, it's garbage. All of those particular mainstream food diets are crap and garbage. And the only real food there is when you start moving back into the herbal, when you start moving back into the minerals, when you start moving back into the alkaline, when you go into the terrain body, then you start to see what the true food is, the true diet is. None of your food should be addictive. You should not be addicted to anything. If you are addicted to something, there's a toxicity right there, and it's affecting your body, right? If we're avid coffee drinkers, right? If we're constantly drinking a bunch of sugary beverages or eating a bunch of meats or whatever it may be, right? If that becomes an addiction, that's feeding a toxicity. That's feeding a very dirty and toxic body that needs to be cleaned out altogether. So through the alkaline diet, as I've been doing it now for over 3.5 weeks, I've already lost over 16 pounds and it feels great, right? Of course, I have this little toe business to deal with, but I know that's going to be cleared out here very soon because each day is getting better. Anyways, that's where I've been for the past little while. This is why I could not do a video last day, because I was still a little bit under the weather with my foot, and of course taking care of some other matters at the same time. But here I am today on the show with the Wisdom Nexus. So today we're going to be talking about from Pisces to Aquarian age, the year 2000 to 2050, the 50-year span between these two ages, which we are in right now, and looking at a Tarot Zodiac Spread, where we're going to be looking at what this represents for us between now and the next 25 years. As we finish the transitional cycle, I'll be talking more about that too, about Brad, why is there a 50-year transitional gate in between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, and what does this all mean? So I'll be talking more about that. And then, of course, we'll be getting into your questions as well, too. So general questions or personal questions, if you guys do want to do personal readings. Again, personal readings are by donation. Otherwise, we'll be looking into some general topics. I can bring Adronis in for any questions. Plus, we can look into the Akashic Records, and we can look into the Tarot at the same time. First and foremost, we're going to go ahead and start off with some announcements and get things rolling here. Let me just get to my screen. I'm on my MacBook Pro, so I'm not on the best convenient way of streaming here. So let's go to announcements. Okay, so here we go. Wisdomtransmissions.com. So again, I still am doing private sessions, one-to-one. Okay, so I've gotten quite a few sessions already last week. So there's private live sessions, 3 questions by email, energy cord attunements. Okay, so these are the 3 sessions that are available on wisdomtransmissions.com. I'm still just finishing up also anointarray.com. Okay, that's the new website that's coming. It's nearly there. It's not quite finished yet. I'm getting just a couple last tweaks. But basically on Anoint Array, when that comes out, you'll find out that there is the full body scans are now there. Okay, so when I debut it, hopefully by tomorrow or Monday, I know it's been a while. I've been battling with this coding platform that I'm working with. But once it's online, our full body scans have gone there. Not only is it a full body scan, but we're actually able to imbue items from your own home. As there's a lot of tariffs, particularly for American customers as well too. At Anoint Array, we're going to be offering that item imbuing service. So basically, if you have a pendulum, a crystal, a necklace, a bracelet, an anklet, anything else of a particular item that you want to have imbued with the codes, again, going back into etherics, going back into RAYD8, and now working together with Anoint Array, that's something that we're going to be offering you. But not only is it an imbuing of that particular object, it's everything that will help to heal up the body. As we do a full body scan, find out exactly what your body needs, and then provide the transcendental frequencies and the scalar directly into that object and placing it into the object. And when you do the full body scan, you can actually have up to 3 objects scanned at once. So that's going to be coming here very, very shortly. Once I get Anoint Array finalized, I'm pretty picky, but I want to make sure that the site is functioning perfectly so that when it does come out, everybody will have a really clean, wonderful experience with it. So it's almost there. It's about 95% done. There's just that last 5%. But anyways, on wisdomtransmissions.com, if you want to book a private one-to-one session with me, a 3-question sessions by email, or again, a energy cord attunement, you can do so. Plus, again, we have the Adronis classroom. Okay, so that is patreon.com/Adronis. You can start off with a 7-day free trial. You can attend a free class. Our next class is tomorrow, and it's only $18 per month. And again, you can basically ask Adronis anything you want, right? Whatever questions are on your mind, that is exactly why the classroom is there. This classroom has been changing people's lives. People have been majorly transforming themselves, right? From when I see them from day one to where I see them right now, they are majorly making incredible shifts through this classroom. So again, this is where I recommend you guys check it out, patreon.com/Adronis. Adronis has been around for 17 years. I've had a lot of followers for Adronis. And if you want to really interact with him one-to-one, this is the best way to do it, is through patreon.com/Adronis. Okay? And also in the video description, we have the link to our Indiegogo campaign. So this is for RAYD8 Amrita. This is the second version of RAYD8 that is coming together. The backings have really been incredible. I'm really amazed at how well we've been doing the first few days. We have over 23 backers. We're 68% of the way. So we're almost there, right? So again, guys, if you really enjoyed the very first version of RAYD8, all I can say is when you have RAYD8 Amrita, it's going to be about 1,000 times better because we're putting all kinds of new technologies into RAYD8. We're making new rejuvenation screens, just like what you see here in the graphic, where you're seeing the screens with the rainbow colored bars and the icons that are scrolling left and right with them. That's powerful, right? That's the first version of RAYD8. But when we get into the second version, you're looking at different variations of those screens. You're looking at being able to create millions of mathematical arrays that can be specifically designed for any particular facet of your body. You're looking at a virtual Tesla coil that will actually radiate scalar vibration. And you're actually looking at it as a 2.5D or even a 3D object based upon the strength of your device. So there's a virtual Tesla coil that's taking place as well too. We're also going to have guided meditations at the same time. We're going to have an AI support as well too that's going to help teach you a lot more about proper healing, looking into proper diet because it's going to follow the alkaline formula, right? So there's so much that is going to be included here on rayd8app.com. We will have a free version of the app just as we had a free version of the first version of RAYD8. So there will be a free version, there will be a light version, and then there will be a deluxe version. Okay, so the free version, the light version is $5.99 per month. And then you have the deluxe version, which basically offers everything. And that's $14.99 per month. Okay, because it's going to be a big, big platform. This is not like the first RAYD8, where in retrospect, the first RAYD8 is small compared to this one. RAYD8 Amrita is big. So again, just go to the video description of this video, and you'll see the link there to Indiegogo for the world's first rejuvenation technology suite, and that is RAYD8 Amrita. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with today's broadcast. All right. So again, I hope you're all doing well. Again, thank you for joining me on a Saturday. This is not the typical day to where Wisdom Nexus starts, but like I said, circumstances just brought us up to Saturday. So if everything goes well, then again, I'll be back on Friday next week for the next Wisdom Nexus at the same time. Okay, so let's talk about the Age of Aquarius as we shift out of the Age of Pisces. Okay, so before I go into the tarot spread here, the Zodiac Tarot Spread, we're going to look a little bit more into that. Okay, so I'm going to use the board here so you guys can see. Hopefully it's okay. Okay, so when we look at the Age of Pisces, okay, what does the Age of Pisces represent? Well, if we're looking at the astrological significance pertaining to the Age of Pisces, what the Age of Pisces represents is that's the sign that's furthest from the sun. Okay, so when we look at Pisces, yes, there's imagination. Okay, yes, there's the idea of compassion as well too. But also it's a time of illusions. It's a time of deception. It does represent darkness. That darkness does not have to be quote-unquote evil. But the reason I say that it does represent darkness is because it is the sign that is furthest away from the sun. So again, as it's the furthest away from the sun, you can keep secrets, right? Pisces will keep secrets. Okay, sorry. Messing up my letters here. Will keep secrets. Okay, it's clandestine. So when we look at the nature of Pisces, this is actually a sign that can brew a lot of wars. This is actually what can cause a lot of hidden agendas. Okay, so hidden agendas from plain sight. Okay, everybody can keep their secrets. Everybody can perform scandals. Everybody can keep all of those things nested in the dark. And how long do these particular cycles last? they can say approximately 2,000 years. About that. It might be a little bit more, or 2,250, some people are saying. But we're just putting a ballpark figure there for approximately 2,000 years. Okay? So this is exactly what has been happening over the past 2,000 years. There have been secret wars. There have been secret societies. There have been the oligarchs hiding in plain sight, right? Up for those particular 2,000 years to secretly run the planet because they kept themselves in the shadows. That is what Pisces represents. Okay? Pisces holds that it's not an evil astrological sign by any means, but it does have the capability to keep everything in the dark, right? That's exactly what's been happening to our society for the past 2,000, or you could say even 2,200 years approximately, based upon the age of Pisces, okay? But when we look at the idea of the first century, okay? First century, again, starts off with the number 1. Really, we could say that the whole nature of Pisces has been based upon the idea of the forefront of the number 1. Okay? The number 1 really has started the entire nature of the Piscean Age, and that's the masculine. But of course, it has been a tainted masculine. It has been a dark masculine energy, right? Of course, there were previous ages before that that were also pretty rough, but this is again the age that we're coming out of, okay? Because by the time of 2000, okay, coming into the year of 2000, everything changed, okay? So even when we go back to 1999, that still holds that hint of the Piscean energy, okay? Especially the 999 here, right? Representing those significant endings. And then we come into the year 2000. And when we come into the year 2000, we need to focus on that. We need to focus on the 2, okay? The number 2 is feminine in nature. This is exactly why the new generation that's on the planet is very feminine. Okay, they're very heart-centered. If we're looking at the number 1 here, pertaining to the Pisces age, this would be very, very solar plexus / navel consciousness. Okay, about pride, right? About ego, about value, right? That's the whole nature of the masculine age pertaining to Pisces. But then when you go over to the Aquarian age and you see the number 2, you're looking at the feminine. Okay. What this means is that you're becoming sociable. What this also means is that doors are opening. Doors open up. Secrets become revealed, which means we shed light on areas of darkness. And that's coming up. Is that happening right now? You bet your ass it's happening right now. This is exactly why everything has shook up since around that time of 2000, 2001, right? 9/11. But that 9/11 in that sense is all part and parcel of trying to suppress that feminine age that was to come, to try and instill it with a whole bunch of fear. Because if we have a whole bunch of fear that we're swimming through, number 2s don't cope with fear too well, right? They can run from fear. How do they bear fear, right? They bear fear in groups. If a number 2 is alone, right? They're by themselves. So my writing is not very good today. It's a shaky board. If the number 2 is alone, they're by themselves, they're going to feel helpless. Okay? A number 2 is not about themselves. They don't look at themselves, right? It's almost like they would look at a mirror and see like there's nobody there. A number 2 is all about everybody else. They want to connect with everybody else. They want to be sociable with everybody else. They want to make sure that everybody else is prospering. They want to make sure that everybody else is doing good. The number 2s don't give a shit about themselves, period. They don't. And believe me, I've met plenty of them. They don't. They're very selfless people. That's great. That's wonderful. But that, of course, is what they have to learn. They have to learn to do some self-integration. But as we look at it from the nature of an age, this is basically taking a gigantic spotlight and shining it upon where all the darkness was. And this is exactly what these oligarchs and elitists and globalists and old guards have feared the most. They have feared this time. And they have tried to prepare for a very long time to try to saturate the entire world in fear, because twos can't get along with fear by themselves. And they will try to make the idea of unity consciousness an enemy. And as long as they make unity consciousness an enemy, nobody's going to want to get along with each other. And then there's going to be divides, and there's going to be separation, and there's going to be fighting, and there's going to be conflict, and nobody is going to get along with anybody else. But what they failed to do was they underestimated the power of the people. It's the problem with a lot of these oligarchs and a lot of these old guards and these controllers, is they are so much in their little bubble. They're right here in their little bubble, and they're scheming. They're just scheming about all these things here. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. But they miss the entire nature of the world and how it works. They are bubble people. It's basically what these billionaires, super wealthy, they're not going to be wandering around with the peasants. Okay, they're going to be in their big homes, they're going to be in their establishments, and they're going to try and get other people who think they know about the world to tell them and educate them about what the world is. And it's very, very bleak, right? So this is their greatest mistake. As I've talked about even last week's broadcast, I was talking about how the oligarchs create the Great Awakening. Okay? They're the ones that actually make this, because what they've been doing is they have been holding the majority of the population on this planet in handcuffs, in shackles. They have built this barricade, they have built this prison around people. But what's happening is that people are now starting to see more and more cracks in their foundation, and through the cracks in the foundation comes these slivers of truth. And these slivers of truth become so profound and so incredible, right? It's speaking this truth to them, and now they're starting to question everything. And then as the years go by, these cracks become chasms. As these chasms develop, there is a full and total pushing out of the landscape, where we are seeing a complete and total worldwide divide of groups on this planet seeing the truth. And they're going to break apart the system. And the system is just going to look like a fractured mess, right? Just cracks here, cracks here, cracks here, cracks here, cracks here. It's going to be dilapidated. It's like looking at concrete after an earthquake has hit it. You're just seeing crevices, cracks, you're seeing chasms, you're seeing everything unfolding. The entire foundation of lies, the entire foundation of control, the entire foundation of greed, the entire foundation of fear is cracking apart completely. Chasms are everywhere. That's what's happening right now. If you're able to look at this and see it, kind of how I'm describing, and you look at the earth in regards to saying, well, let's take a look if I was to put an overlay about what this old world order is trying to do and where it is right now, you would see that the earth has these overlays of cracks and crevices and chasms all over the place. Their entire system is falling. It's like taking a big jackhammer and just breaking apart all the concrete, right? Now you got thousands of people with jackhammers going in, they're just breaking apart the concrete. As the concrete starts breaking apart, you got those natural roots of the earth coming up, and it's representing the truth. And what they're still trying to do is like trying to get their construction crews to go and come on, go plant some more concrete. It's too late. Even as soon as they plant the concrete down, it starts to divide. So they're losing control, and they are going to lose complete and total control, as I've talked about. This is nothing new. I've described this quite a bit. So when we're looking at the Age of Aquarius, the Age of Aquarius represents this number 2. Okay? It is about social consciousness. It is about unity. It is about collective consciousness. It is about groups. If you're trying to do all this stuff alone, good luck. You will fail. right? And I will tell any expert out there right now, if you think that you have all the answers and you can do this all yourself and you don't need anybody else thinking that you're in the forefront of all of this, first of all, you're completely arrogant and you will fail. You have to work with the people. You have to work with groups. You have to work with others. If you really have a very important message, and like I said, I'm thankful for every single supporter I have. I don't consider myself a big leader or anything of that nature. I share what I share, and you guys help me with that, right? You guys inspire me to continue to do more of this work. So no, I do not see myself as the lone wolf with all this. I have you guys, right? Together we represent a group consciousness, and that's how it should be, right? There's a lot of these people, like I said, that again have profound information or somewhat profound information, and they have a lot of contacts, and then all of a sudden they're getting death threats from people. And now they're getting these death threats that are very, very serious, because this is exactly what happened to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, in that sense, had the ability to continue on if he worked with something very, very important that other experts are now realizing that they need. And that is this. A dead man's trigger. Okay, well, Brad, what the heck is that? Well, there's quite a few people who basically have done their research quite well, is that they work with these particular contacts and they will check in with this group that they're a part of. And they will check in at certain intervals, and they may say certain things to make sure that their check-in is legitimate. If anything happens to them, if anything happens to their loved ones, anything that happens to the people they hold dear, they will basically tell those contacts to release all of the information that they have and blast the entire media with it, blast the entire internet with it, blast everything with it, right? So it's what we call a dead man's trigger, okay? Candace Owens just recently talked about that. After Charlie Kirk's death, she said that I have everything here, and if anyone tries to come after me, I'll release everything. That's a dead man's trigger, or a dead woman's trigger, right? Or a death trigger, whatever you want to call it. But that's the trigger. And that is what all of you experts, I'm hoping you're watching this, you better have this, okay? You better have this if you got some really, really incriminating information about what you're all about, right? So if that's a Tucker Carlson, if that's a Candace Owens, if that's anybody that, again, has all of these contacts, so they do. They got contacts within contacts within contacts. You guys better have dead man's triggers. Okay, even Pierre Poilievre, who was looking to become the next Prime Minister of Canada, is getting a wide assortment of death threats from the Liberals. You better have a dead man's trigger. Okay, so this is the whole idea, is if those experts are watching, and maybe you guys can send this video to them as well too. If you guys are watching, you better have a dead man's trigger implemented. Because again, you do not want to turn out just like some of those other people who in the past have had all kinds of great information, but what happens is they don't prepare properly. If anything happens to them, then again, a lot of their knowledge is lost. A lot of their contacts that they have is lost. And now we lose the opportunity for something very massive to hit the internet wave, so to speak, that can change everything around. So like I said, working together with a dead man's trigger is very, very important. So again, to conclude with this, the Age of Aquarius represents unity consciousness. It is the feminine. It is what represents the idea of people coming together, people unifying. As we get much more into the Aquarian age, anything that is centralized, which represents the number 1 pertaining to the Piscean Age, needs to fall away. So between the years of 2000 and 2050, we are seeing the complete and total transitioning out of the Piscean Age, which will represent the fall of the old centralized way of things. Okay, everything that's been privatized, everything that's been centralized, that worked in the age of Pisces. Doesn't work in the age of Aquarius. So it's basically these things, and this is why we especially have spent the last 25 years seeing this very powerful tremor hitting the collective consciousness, breaking down everything that represented command, centralization, privatization, all of it has been attacked, even since 2000. And we're just past the first half of the transition. Why is there a transition? Why is there a 50-year transition? Well, think of it as two spheres. Okay, so here's one sphere here, and here's another sphere here. We can see this quite commonly as the Vesica Pisces, where we see these two particular circles, these spheres, overlapping. And that's how it happens, because the ages are connected to each other. They are like spheres, but they are slightly connected within each other that generates this Vesica Pisces symbol. And during this time of an age, we start to see the old age start to fizzle out and the new age start to take its place. And there's a 50-year gap that happens in between those ages. This has happened through the age of Aries, the age of Pisces. Any particular age will always have that particular type of 50-year transitional phase, because we're seeing it happening right now. The first 25 years has been affected by the bringing in of the Age of Aquarius. So the Age of Aquarius primarily is already here, but it's still sharing a little bit of space pertaining to the Age of Pisces. And again, it's almost like tidal gravity that we're going to see the transition phase out between the Age of Aquarius and the Age of Pisces to where only the Age of Aquarius remains. When you are in the full spectrum of the Age of Aquarius, none of this transition representing clandestinity, representing secrecy, representing centralization can live. It can't. It is not compatible with the Aquarian age, because what is the Aquarian age? The Aquarian age is free-spirited, right? It's free spirit. Okay, it's independency. It's the idea of spontaneity. It's the idea of trying new things. It's the idea of opening yourself up, expanding yourself. It really is spiritual evolution, right? It's greater adaptability. It represents change, okay? Pisces doesn't have those qualities, right? It's a visionary. It's compassionate, but it also has a lot of that deep loss and suffering. The reason why it has that loss and suffering is because everything's kept in the dark. Like I said, Pisces is a sign of secrets, right? It's all about secrecy. And that is exactly why these particular oligarchs have thrived for well over the past 2,000 plus years, especially in Pisces. They can hide everything. I can hide everything in plain sight. Nobody will see me do anything. Bunch of fools. Well, it's just because that's the age that you're in. You're in the age of Pisces, and in the age of Pisces, you can hide everything. Everything can stay clandestine. Everything can stay secret. But not when you get into Aquarius, and not when you get into the age of the number 2, because that's going to expose everything. Everybody's going to come together. Even people who you've trusted for a very, very long time are going to turn on you, and they're going to tell everybody that this is exactly what this person is doing, because they're actually putting the collective consciousness, group consciousness first. Whereas when we look at the number 1, it's me first. It's the individual first. It's not about the collective. But very different story when we go into number 2. Number 2, it's all about the collective. The people take their power back. Unity consciousness prevails. So this is what's happening between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. Okay, so I had to set this ground for you first before we start going into the tarot, which we're going to get into right now. Just grab my chair once again. And now we're going to take a look at this Tarot Zodiac Spread about looking at the transition between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. So let's take a look here. All right. So we're going to start off here with the sign of Aries, okay, and work all the way around until we get to Pisces. Now, again, I've done these particular readings quite a few times in the past, but for those of you who are not familiar with the idea of a tarot zodiac spread, we're looking at the 12 signs of the zodiac, and then the 13th sign would represent ourselves, how we respond to everything that's taking place here. And the question that was asked is, what can we expect to see between now, 2025, and into 2050, where we see the conclusion of the Piscean and Aquarian transition? Okay, so we're going to be looking into that now. So the first house, the first sign here is Aquarius. Oh my God, Aries. Aries, not Aquarius. Aquarius is over here. Is the first sign of Aries. Okay, so with the first sign of Aries, we have the Eight of Cups. Okay, this is basically telling us that we're ditching everything pertaining to the old system. Here's the old system. 8, again, representing karma. We're ditching that. Everything that represents the current system on this planet, the man-made systems, the modern systems, all of it's being ditched. All of it's being scrubbed away. All of it's going to clear. Brad, what is that going to lead us to? That is going to lead us into a decentralized society. Everything is going to be decentralized. And I can even say that even when you start moving forward through these next few years, everything that you're looking at right now that's horrifying will cease to exist. Everything that you see on the planet right now that just makes your skin crawl, that just causes so much upset, where you're seeing people turning on people, you're seeing, again, these greedy corporations taking over government, taking over politics, taking over technology, taking over everything. All of that's going to be gone within the next few years. Brett, how can that possibly happen? Well, these events that are going to be happening are leading to that. Within the next few years, none of this will be here. Everything's going to be changing dramatically. I'm not the only one saying this. There are other people who tune in, who look at this, who see ahead, and to say it's a positive future is an understatement. It is going to be a revolutionary future for ourselves. Okay? But for people that are still clinging on to these old systems, who feel that they need these old systems, it's going to be almost impossible for them to cope with it, because they are so used to being controlled. They are so used to being brainwashed. They are so used to being mind controlled, so to speak, that they would want to give their own lives to corruption rather than actually looking at what's ahead that's going to help empower them. There's going to be people like that, and that's why you see a divide on the planet. That's why you see everybody basically standing in their own lines of the sand, saying, no, this is why I support this, and this is why you have people, laughing and thinking it's absolutely humorous when another person is shot, right? Another person dies for spreading their truth, and you have people online that are just cheering and celebrating that, right? This is telling me these are people, again, who, they do not know what they do. They do not say what they do. They do not know what they do. They do not think what they do. And they stand in their own line in the sand because they have been so completely brainwashed and have been so utterly confused and kept in ignorance, believing that we need to be ruled. That's basically what they're saying, right? They may not even come across as saying that. So, I'm not looking to be ruled. So that's basically what you're doing. As long as you're defending this system that is basically on the way out, you want to be ruled. You want somebody to take care of you, and not in a good way. They pretend to think that they're going to take care of you, but they are going to destroy you. So again, this is what we're walking away from. And as we look at the other side of the spectrum here, over to the seventh house, which represents that of Libra. Okay, so between the first and the seventh house, again with Libra, represents balance, represents partnership, represents public transformation, looking at the nature of kind of like turning over a new leaf, right? We are seeing a grandiose time. We're leaving behind an old system, and we're coming into a system, again, that represents partnership, unity consciousness, transformation. So I'm not just saying this myself. The tarot is telling us the exact same thing. You are getting out of an old system, again, representing the 8, representing karma, and you're moving into the sun. You're getting into something very powerful, unity consciousness, right? Like I said, Libra is all about that partnership. And the number 2 is all about partnership. That's Aquarius. That's what we're moving into. So we're seeing a very powerful change. Is ditch these old systems. They are dying. Don't give them your attention. Start working together as a group, as a collective. Build something new. Bring about change, because this system that you're in doesn't give a crap about you for the first part. And number two, none of these systems are going to bring you into great states of expansion. It is not going to move you into great states of joy. It is not going to bring you peace, right? This is where you need to work together, developing new systems, developing new ideologies, developing new innovations that are going to change the landscape of the system once and for all. Let's go on to the second card here. This again is the House of Taurus, and we have the Knight of Cups. Okay, so the Knight of Cups, basically we can see a little moat here, but we also see that the Knight of Cups almost has kind of like an emotional, romantic attachment to it. This is stability and security. It's kind of giving us the idea that as far as stability and security goes, it's going to take a new form, but it is going to be something that's very well liked. It's going to be liked. It's actually going to be a lot more simple as how things will be going. Money in itself isn't really going to be lasting that much longer, right? It maybe only has a couple of decades of life within it. After that, it's going to turn into something else. There's going to be another type of currency on the planet. And I'm not talking about cryptocurrency. And I'm not talking about digital currency. And I'm not talking about gold-backed currency. And I'm not talking about BRICS Alliance currency, right? I'm not talking about any of those things. It's a new type of currency that will be coming about that's primarily based on time. It's based on time and experience, right? I was looking into this as well too. So while this other particular type of system that we would do representing exchange, what would that look like? And the words that were coming up were time, experience, merit. That's the new system that will be coming. But it's going to be a while yet, because we still have to get out of this old transition of having digital currency or ones and zeros on a screen and getting out of that, right? So there's going to be some people that are going to come together who have a lot of say-so, have a lot of influence, that are bringing about these new systems that are going to replace money in the times ahead. But that's still a couple decades away. But nonetheless, it's saying that we're getting out of a point where struggle is not going to be the norm anymore. Everybody is going to have enough. Everybody is going to have what they need, not just to survive, but to live and thrive. So this is telling me here through the Knight of Cups, like I said, it's kind of like that Prince Charming that's coming in. And again, it's an emotional time of great stability and security, right? The whole nature of the money system is going to change, and everybody is going to have some. No one is going to be deprived. No one is going to be in poverty anymore. Nobody is going to be homeless on the street. Nothing like that. That does not have to happen. The only reason a person would want to be on the street is because they choose to, right? Not because it's a battle with money, but because it's their own personal choosing, and that's fine. But nonetheless, this is telling me that there is a comfort coming together with stability and security, because that's what Taurus represents. It is stability, it is security, and it's looking very interesting here. That is crisscrossing or aspecting here with Scorpio, okay? And Scorpio here, we have the Seven of Cups. So when we look at Scorpio, this is scandals, this is secrecy, this is death, this is change, okay? And again, people are kind of up in the air, not knowing what's going on, right? Why is everybody so afraid? Why is everybody so angry? Why is everybody hurting each other, right? But we're basically seeing that this type of security is basically going to lead into people thinking twice about that type of security. Is this going to be some other particular type of agenda that they have? Is this going to be another type of, kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing type situation where we're going to give up our trust and then we're going to get hurt, right? So new ideas of a new financial system is coming. New ideas of how we work with currency on this planet is coming, and it's going to bring about a stability and security, but people are going to be looking at it through fear. They're going to be looking at it very fearfully, even though there is none of that agenda that is going to take people over, because it's a decentralization. My friends, you can't hold anybody at bay through a decentralized system. It's not possible. Centralized systems, you can do that, but not decentralized systems, because you are working with yourself. You are working independently. Decentralization is you being your own bank. It's you being your own sovereign. But we're going to look at that and think that there's some evil there, because there's going to be a lot of foul play with that. Thinking that if all these systems are starting to come out, believe me, a lot of those dark-siders will be thinking that it is the most horrible and most evil thing that you could ever explore, right? So you got to be mindful of that. There's going to be trickery around that. Third house representing that of Gemini, okay? So Gemini is all about communication, and we have the Ace of Pentacles. So the times ahead, and again, we see the Ace of Pentacles here representing material wealth, material success. There's going to be a lot of happiness on the planet. I think this thing is going to be short-term, and it's going to phase out because it won't have any roots. It will not have any iron or grit to basically try and establish itself as a long-term, quote-unquote tactic that's going to try and debunk the idea of this financial system that's coming. What's happening right now is a lot of that current financial system is looking to transition away into something better, and then as that something better comes together, it's going to expand and move into something even greater than what it is in its first initial stage. So that is a very good sign. So communication here through Gemini being the Ace of Pentacles. So again, we're going to be able to have a lot more material wealth, material success. People are going to, I think there's also a feeling of very strong improvement of communication technology. I think there may also be more privacy pertaining to people's communication as well too. Like I said, this is all telling me about decentralization. And it aspects together with the 9th house, which is Sagittarius. Okay, Sagittarius can often represent good fortune, kind of like the universe is smiling down upon you. Queen of Cups. So when you look at the Queen of Cups, we're looking at a woman who's, again, looking at that goblet that she's holding there. But this represents a level of emotional maturity, right? It's a very spiritual card. But when we look at the Queen of Cups, this is showing that there's going to be a maturity age. There's going to be a time to where people are actually going to start being more responsible for themselves. They're not going to be thrown around in panic and feeling like they're just pointing at the clouds, thinking that dozens of meteors are about to hit the planet and just wipe everybody out, right? There's going to be less and less of that paranoia that's going to be happening as we move through this transition. Right now, we may have a hard time believing this. Like, Brad, people are crazy right now. I said, I know people are crazy right now. And it's supposed to be happening that way. It's supposed to knock you off your rocker. Like I said, the ground is destabilizing beneath your feet because we've been living in a world that is not genuine. We've been living in a world that is built on catastrophe. We are living in a world that is based entirely on fear and control. And now all of that is shaking. The bedrock of that is destabilizing. And this is why people are panicking, because this is all they've ever known. With all due respect, people are fighting over shit sandwiches because that's all you've ever eaten. And we're telling you, here's a plate of divine fruit. It's not a shit sandwich because that's all I've been eating my entire life. You see, that's the whole idea. You don't know you're in darkness until you get a higher perspective, right? We're trying to offer you divine fruit. And you're amazed that we're not giving you a shit sandwich because that's all you've been eating. And if that's all you've been eating your entire life, then of course you're not used to the idea of seeing something transform, to see something change, to see something become better, because you've been feeding on filth your whole life, believing that's how life is. That's why people are crazy. Right? It's no longer about the idea of having to munch on those excrement sandwiches anymore. There is an opportunity right now to transcend all of it because we're in an age of information, and we start working with that information wisely, you're going to start taking a new path. So this again is telling me about the nature of maturity that's coming up together with the Queen of Cups. There's a level of maturity. She's no longer basking in the material world. She's starting to uplift herself. She's starting to expand herself. She's working with her feelings, right? There's a maturity cycle that's coming together. Then we go to the 4th house, which again is Cancer. And Cancer has the 7 of Swords. Okay, so what represents Cancer? Well, Cancer is all about the homestead. It's about the mother. It's about family. It's about land. It's about environment. Okay, so we're seeing the 7 of Swords, and again we see this person who's like kind of like a thief in the night, which means they're trying to change the landscape. They're trying to give you the idea that they're still in control, that they're going to move the pegs, that they're going to be the ones that are still going to decide how you live and the type of house that you buy and trying to live off the government, right? They're basically trying to be these thieves in the night. They're trying to create plans, agendas pertaining to how your own household, how your own living situation unfolds, trying to raise your taxes, trying to create more inflation in that sense. But then it's aspecting to the 10th house, which represents the Queen of Pentacles. And when we look at the Queen of Pentacles, this again represents a very powerful security blanket because Capricorn represents popularity, status, government, right? Being able to move much more higher in the state of status. So we're going to see the idea of them trying to control the land, of them trying to control your thoughts pertaining to how you should live your life, into, again, sovereignty, because we have the Queen here. The Queen's all about sovereignty, right? So she's holding that material wealth, which means people are going to be getting their land back. People are going to be getting their homes back. People are going to start getting their lives back, because we're going to see this sink and we're going to see this rise. So this is telling me that, again, with what they're meddling with what they're messing with altogether, it's going to change significantly, and for the better as well too. So people are going to start getting their homes back. People, the home market, the house market will start to decrease, and we will actually start to be able to buy homes again, right? That is coming. This whole inflation agenda is nothing more than a type of financial COVID. That's basically what's happening. And it really only has about another year or two of life in it before it collapses completely. So this is what I'm seeing here. As we move deeper into the Age of Aquarius, people are going to have their own land. They're going to have their own homes. It's not going to be something that you need to choke people out to try and get for yourself. It's going to be a shared community pertaining to land. It's going to be very interesting. Okay, then we have the 5th house here, which is Leo. Leo again representing the planet Venus, okay, fertility. So we have the Empress here, fertility altogether. So with Leo, this is representing strength. This is representing courage. This is representing intuition. This is representing kind of like our own spirit, and it's expanding exponentially, right? We're going to see the fruits of how we come together, right? Leo can also be about the idea of bringing people together, right? Leo has that strong leadership quality at the same time. So there's leadership that's coming together, and these leaders are actually much more about the people and not about payments, not about purchase, not about getting greedy. This is something where leaders are going to come together, and it's leaders primarily in community. It's not these people that you see that has 10 million views on YouTube or 5 million subscribers or anything of that nature. These are people that are working together with community, and it feels like community is going to get strong, right? So there's that courage, there's that strength, there's that backbone in community that's going to be coming together. So people are going to be working together a lot more, because that's the 2 energy. The 2 energy is people working together, people coming together in groups. It's not about independency when it comes to the idea of shifting landscapes here, moving into a whole new earth. It is going to be very cooperative. It's going to be very, very community-based. There's unity consciousness that's coming together here. So aspecting that is Aquarius. And so we have the Knight of Swords. So again, with this is also saying that we're basically going to be hunting down conflict. We're going to be taking down all of those who are spreading lies. And the idea of trying to paint evil as good and good as evil is going to end, because that's all they've been doing. They've been constantly thinking that, okay, guys, just go ahead and eat all this fertilizer. It's good for you. Go ahead and drink this bottle of poison. It's good for you. No, I'm going to have this divine fruit. I'm going to have this divine nectar. No. Don't do that. That'll kill you. That's horrible stuff. And whoever told you that stuff is good is a psychopath, is a maniac. Because that's basically what's happening here on this planet. We are basically painting the walls, looking at everything evil and thinking that evil is good. And anything that's good that's on that wall is basically being vandalized and thinking that's evil. This person is basically sleeping with Satan if he thinks that this is what's good. That's what we've been having on our planet for a very long time, and that's what's going to be getting scrubbed out here, right? The Knight of Swords, again, this represents a very strong thought-based card, but the mentality is going to change. We're going to see people who say, nope, I'm not putting up with this whole idea of these particular criminals and these gangsters, these mafia members, constantly telling us that evil is good and that good is evil, because that's what they've been doing with the culture. They've been brainwashing everybody. They've been brainwashing everybody through their own mainstream, telling everybody this is what's good when it's horrendously evil, right? And so there's going to be a breaking point with that as well too. Then we get to the 6th house, which is Virgo, okay? And we have the 10 of Cups. So this represents service. This represents labor, okay? This represents deep diving. This represents the idea of looking much more deeper beyond the surface. And I feel like, again, going back to that old saying, the truth is going to set you free, right? People are going to be working together. As they work together, they will see the truth through themselves. They will work together. They will see this. They will dig deep together. They will research together. They will look into these things together. They will find the truth together. And that is going to lead to the end of Pisces. And here we go, right on Pisces here in the 12th sign. We're seeing the Tower. And this is so appropriate. This is what represents the end of the Piscean Age, because this is what's happening right now. We are seeing lightning strike the ivory tower of corruption. We are seeing the criminals of this world basically being ejected from this illusionary ivory tower and being completely kicked out, where they will have nothing left. Everything is going to be taken away from them. And this is why they are so frantic. This is why they're going around and trying to threaten people and trying to get people to shut up, because they're losing everything. I mean, if we really had like a network that followed around a lot of the behind the scenes actions of what's taking place, you would be seeing these criminals getting constantly apprehended. You would see these criminals getting busted. You would see these criminals basically being pulled out of their installations. Some of them would actually even be killed as well too. You would see a lot of these particular criminal cartels being completely and totally dismantled. You would be seeing hundreds of thousands of children being freed from what these criminals are doing, right? I'm not going to go too much into it because it's YouTube and censorship, right? But you kind of get the cut of my gist. This is what's happening with the Age of Pisces. It is the idea of it being completely leveled to the ground. That's why there's crevices. That's why there's cracks. That's why there's chasms. This entire system, this whole conglomerate of systems that are placed upon our planet right now is meant to be bulldozed completely into the ground. Not a shred of it can remain. It's all got to go, right? And I think that's what scares people the most, because we have been living in these systems for our very sustenance since the day that we were born. And now, Brad, you're telling me that all of this is going to go? It's exactly what I'm telling you. Well, that's horrifying. It can be horrifying if you don't understand what's actually representing those old systems. Those old systems are created by criminals. Those old systems are created by mafia members. Those old systems are created by, again, demonic worshipping psychopaths. Okay? Ancient societies that have been perverted to where their societies were once very noble and dignified, to becoming very indignant and becoming very amoral and becoming very, very despicable and heartless, because they don't create anything themselves. These criminals don't know how to create shit. What they do is they leech onto something like a parasite, corrupt it, and now it becomes theirs. They're not able to create anything because they're too dense. They're too solidified. They are completely in the brood of their own corruption and fear and control. They don't know how to create anything. They will take over people's creations and corrupt them to the bone and then utilize it for themselves. They can't create anything. All of these systems were originally brought in to aid humankind. And every single one of them has been tainted by a virus. And that virus are these ass clowns right here. And these particular people who have been in their ivory towers who have corrupted kings, who have corrupted queens, who have corrupted emperors, who have corrupted military generals, who have corrupted scholars, everything, right? They have corrupted everything. They act like a parasite, and they parasitically feed on everything. And the last thing they want to admit is that they're actually doing this. This is actually that host's fault. That host had to exist, and I just basically came up and tried to improve his life. You're killing the guy. Oh, but it's not my fault, right? That's how they work. That's their mentality. So this is exactly why they have to go down. Basically, what's happening right now is this is not about negotiations anymore, because basically we could say that there are, quote unquote, unseen forces in the background that have been working for decades, trying to negotiate with these particular types of parasitical beings to get them off the planet. They won't budge. They would rather level the entire planet and kill everybody on it than give up their power. So what is taking place right now is a fight. And what's happening with a lot of these particular parasites is they don't want that because they're so weak. If they get into a fight, they're going to lose. And especially with these particular forces that are remaining inside the background, they're just sharpening their swords and they're going to lop off heads. And that's exactly what's happening to all of these corrupt. Their heads are about to get lopped off. But many of them, and again, like I said, are very big cowards. And they say, please, if you spare my life, I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you my bosses, I'll tell you my connections, I'll tell you everything. And this is why some of them may get amnesty. They may get immunity because what they say actually becomes true, and they can actually go on living because they're cowards, right? But this is what's happening to the entire Piscean Age. It's being completely dismantled before our eyes. Finally, we go to the 13th card, and this is representing the Hanged Man, okay? So even though it is a 25-year span remaining at the end of this transitional cycle, everything is happening. So even though it feels like everything is in chaos, it's not. This is really what the Hanged Man is telling me. It seems like, okay, I'm hanging upside down, feels like I'm helpless, I'm not able to do anything, but it's not like that. This again is representing the enlightenment, the sun behind the head, representing enlightenment, representing awareness, representing greater omnipresence of everything that's happening. It feels like you're being immobilized. It feels like you have nowhere to turn, but that's not what's happening, my friend. It all comes down to the idea of our addictions to these systems. And once these addictions to the systems start to become released, you see the truth, right? The truth is seen from the other perspective. You're seeing it from another viewpoint, and you're seeing it as it is. You will never get the truth when you're facing upright. But when you start to flip yourself around, when you flip the script, when you flip yourself around, you flip life around, you see the truth. And again, it feels like you're immobile, but you're not. You're actually becoming very wise because you're willing to go against the corrupt grain and seeing the truth altogether. And those that see this will prosper throughout life. Okay, so there you have it, everybody. It's a bit of a long presentation, I know, but it was something that needed to be shared because this has been something I've wanted to talk about for quite some time, about the transition between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. So I hope that sheds a little bit more light on understanding exactly where we are and how things are going. Of course, we'll have a lot more conversation about this because, like I said, it's such a big topic, such a big level of discussion here. All right, so let's go ahead and switch gears now. We're going to go ahead and move on into some questions. Let me just go ahead and check the chat and see. All right, there we go. We do have a couple of donation-based questions first, so I'll take those first. And then after the donation-based questions, I will go to the free posted questions. Okay, this one here is from EUM142. Hello, welcome. And they say, hi, Adronis. How much of our music from past decades is imbued with harmful and beneficial frequencies? Could you name some examples, please? EUM142, that's a very loaded question, and that's a very broad question. I'm not going to deny the question for you because I will bring Adronis in. But what you're basically asking him to do is almost impossible to say in a short amount of time that we have, right? But just letting you know in that sense, there are so many examples of that, and it's very vast. So you may not just get the answer that you're looking for. Okay, that's just kind of a disclaimer first, because we're looking at music, and that's so broad. Okay, but Adronis will do his best, I'm sure, to give you a little bit more information about this. Okay, but like I said, it's not just going to be what you think it is. That's the important thing that I'm trying to convey. So anyways, give me a moment here. I will go ahead and bring Adronis in, and we'll take a stab at this question. Okay. Terra Soul Star Sirius Adronis. We are here. At this time, we bid you greetings, and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning in to this broadcast through your internet collective consciousness. We thank you very much, EUM142, for your question about music, about looking at the beneficial qualities of music or the malefic qualities of music. How can we tell what certain particular type of music may have those benefactors or may have those malefic aspects altogether? Can Adronis give us some examples? Well, basically in the way that we could say is that when you look at the feeling behind the music, it really tells you everything. Now, there are certain forms of themes behind music that basically create excruciation. What does that mean? Which means if you were to line up a geometry that you were able to see that is quite malleable and play the particular music in question and watch the geometry itself degrade, that would be the idea of the excruciation of music. This is quite often found in your heavy metal genre. This is also quite found in your own rap genre. These are examples. So again, we're not saying the entire facet, but much of what you find within those particular genres, if you basically place the music next to where you could observe a malleable crystal that represents a harmonious geometry and playing that for a matter of days on end, you will notice that geometry will start to severely degrade. Simply because when you're looking at the oscillations pertaining to the sound, it moves much more into an excruciation factor. It's like an inflammation pertaining to sound frequency, to the harmonic itself. So when you're having those very low bass tones and they're being played in a very aggressive manner, that is what's debilitating the crystal. That's what's causing it to degrade. You could also look at something that's much more lyrical, even if there's no instruments in the background, where a person is simply singing. They may again just share the lyrics altogether and put their feelings into it. Now, there may be a song that's very uplifting and beautiful. It lifts your heart as you hear it, and you will notice that that particular geometry will recrystallize because it's in harmony with the harmonics of creation. But when you're looking at someone who's very aggressive, who's very angry, or very sad, or very depressed, and they're carrying their words based on that emotion, you're again seeing that particular crystal starting to deteriorate. Because when you're looking at the nature of emotion when it comes to severe states of anger, severe states of sadness, and severe states of fear, that is going to cause the crystal to degrade. So again, this is where Brad also says it's not really appropriate for us to give you all of these particular examples because there can be fine lines in between them all. but primarily in regards to the nature of aggression, excruciation, great fear, great sadness, great anger. All of that leads to a degradation of the frequency itself when you're looking at that particular crystal, where its geometry now starts to truncate. Its energy, its own design, now starts to move much more into a deterioration appearance. And that has to do with the idea of frequency. Because you have to understand that frequency has its highs and lows. It has its ebb, it has its flow. It has its darkness, it has its light. And it has its gradient in between. So we would say, EUM 142, it depends. We're not here to label that all heavy metal music is horrible. We're not here to label that all rap music is horrible. But we can see that in many common mainstreams pertaining to utilize those particular types of styles, that this would generate a very deteriorating result upon the crystal that would represent that sample. So that's really what we can share, is when you're looking in the idea of music, yes, how it is played is important. The music itself, how the instruments are tuned, how the instruments are basically being conveyed through the player, through the musician, is important. Because if they're, again, very aggressively going down on the guitar like this, and you're getting that excruciation, there goes the crystal into deterioration. But then you start seeing them in the guitar, and there's a joy, there's a lightness, there's a love, there's a shifting there of great expansion. That crystal is going to grow exponentially and beautifully. Do you see? So it's not about trying to put these in compartments. It's about working with the vibrational signature of the crystalline geometry itself to determine its orientation based upon what's being played, to determine the outcome for yourself. Because again, we have endless examples that we could give you that would represent this. But again, as we would say, agreeing with Brad, this is a little bit more of a broader question. But there you go. There's the hint for it. All right? We thank you for your question. Okay. Thank you, EUN142, for your question. Let's go ahead and move on. All right. We have one here from the Year of the Fire Horse. Hi, Adronis. In what ways can graduating from the Earth School expand your soul compared to not incarnating in the Earth School ever? All right. So 1 moment. We thank you very much, Year of the Fire Horse, for your question. Well, firstly, understand that if you decide not to follow a path, we really can't comment on that. Because it's like us telling you, if you go down this path, you will never be the same once you reach the end of it. But what happens instead is you decide not to walk it. So therefore, anything that happens pertaining to that path, we can't tell you because it's a road not traveled. So again, there's no comparison from one who's not walking this path compared to one who is. They're not associated in regards to being in the same understanding of discussion. Because it's like looking at something that's a vegetable, and it's like looking at something else that's a fruit. They are not viable in regards to a comparison discussion because they're two different substances. So you're basically talking about vegetables and fruit here, Chris. So rather, the idea is, how about we look at the fruits? So by deciding to come here on planet Earth, there is something very unique about the planet, because what she is teaching you all about through herself, through her language, is how to be true to yourself. Adronis, how can that be? We're surrounded with corruption, we're surrounded with chaos, we're surrounded by people who are greedy, we're surrounded by a bunch of liars, by a bunch of deceivers, we're surrounded by people who are willing to end other people's lives to keep their secrets. And you're telling us that this is what the earth is trying to teach us to become more authentic. Yes. Because everything that you're following pertaining to that path of thinking that, oh my goodness, as soon as I come to this world, everything feels so hard. Everything feels so difficult because you try to align into a false human narrative. You try to bring about fruits of goodness towards something that is completely and totally corrupt. You can't do that. That's like you going to a dead carcass and thinking that there's going to be some benefit of bringing that carcass into your own body, of trying to feed off it, days after it has died. You're going to get sick. You see? It's the exact same way pertaining to the earth in regards to what she's showing you. Here's the veil of illusion. Oh, okay, I'll start playing with it. I'll start trying to make myself a millionaire. I'll start building businesses. I'll start building all of this. I want to go to this 9 to 5. I want to have this family. I want to be a success. I want to jump over people and I want to move myself to the top of the mountain. I want to be the top business person. I want to be the top CEO. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. I'm going to trailblaze that to the greatest of my ability through this veil. And what happens? What happens to many of you? You become lonely. You start to feel like you're cutting off everybody else. You feel like everybody is blaming you. You feel again that even though you're chasing money, you feel empty inside. You feel again how your family wants to spend more time with you, but instead you're putting yourself into the grind, preventing yourself from getting to know your family more and moving much more up into this corporate ladder. These are just examples, because this represents the nature of the false narrative. We could give you many more examples besides just this. But everything that represents the nature of the false human narrative is not here to excel you. It is not here for you to bring yourself into a state of prosperity, because there's no prosperity in filth. Rather, you need to look at it and see it what it is. You experience it for a time, and then you start to grab the curtain and you start to pull it away, because you realize how it's an illusion. You realize how it's not the true you. You realize everything that's here pertaining to systems is really only meant to try to serve a few others, and even those few others that are being served are in endless torment themselves. But their greed is insurmountable, and you're only playing along with that. So when you peel away the veil, when you close that door that represents the illusionary world, and you stand in the space of who and what you truly are, that you are beyond these ambitions, that you are beyond these idealisms, that you are beyond these beliefs, that you are beyond these systems, and that you see the true world that enables the heart to shine, then you're walking an authentic path. Because that's what the earth is trying to show you. That's how she teaches. She shows you all of these illusions. Are you catching on? Are you catching on? Are you catching on? Many of you are not. You will still ingrain yourself into the illusions until it breaks you down. And then finally, you may start to see a little ripple through that curtain. And then you start to see more, and then you start to see more, and then you start to see more, and now you can pull down that veil and saying, this is not the idea. I don't want to betray my friends. I don't want to disclude my family. I don't want to feel like I have to work like a dog 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day just to do what? To put a little extra money in my bank account? To have a big car? To have a big house that I have to pay more of a fortune to maintain? It's draining me. Exactly. So what happens when you learn to relinquish that? Where you're no longer chasing those things anymore. The idea of the appeal of having great wealth physically no longer interests you, which means you have much more joy and being a simple gardener, working for a very small amount of money that sustains you, rather than having to go back into that business world, trying to feel like you have to make the millions and watching it slowly consume you. That again is what represents the false narrative. Whereas the authentic narrative is you doing where your heart is trying to take you. Maybe it's being a gardener. Maybe it's being a teacher. Maybe it's being a caretaker. Maybe it's watching after somebody. Maybe it's being a musician, whatever it may be. It can be that. We're not saying that you can't make money on this planet, but many of you make money in the wrong way. You feel money dominates you, rather than the idea of saying that money is just a tool and it comes and goes. Now that's a sign of authenticity. The idea of being dominated over the idea of the dollar bill, thinking that you have to completely excruciate your life over it, is the false human narrative. Being able to see that you indeed are sovereign and that money works for you, not the other way around, and that it comes and then it goes, and that when you get it, you're utilizing it also for the sake of others. You're thinking of others. And when you're thinking of others, that's authenticity. You see? So the mother will put you through the trenches. The earth is going to put you through the trenches. So here you go. All of this looks very nice, but when you peel away the veil, you're in the muck. You're in the excrement. You're in the fertilizer. You're trotting around in manure. And you don't know it. The food that you're putting into your body, thinking it's so good, but your body is being excruciated by it. And you don't know it. How you're treating other people in this world. That I'm out for number one, that it's all about me and it's not about them, and I'll trample over them. Again, you think you're furthering your career, furthering your status, but when you peel it away, you're seeing how you're hurting yourself by hurting another. And it's showing you this. Those are the trenches. And once you pull away the veils and you see them from what they really are, you stand up. I see this now. I'm not going to involve myself with all this. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to let these go. And I'm going to stand in my light, because it's about letting the heart lead me in life. It's like that hanged man card. Even though that hanged man is hanging upside down, he's seeing the world from a different perspective and can see a lot more clearer than people who are standing upright, following a world of illusions. So, looking at the nature of Earth is seeing her beauty once you get past your illusions, once you get past your karma. All of that now starts to fade, and you see the world as she truly is, which means you're being supported all the time, whether you have money or not. You're always having a roof over your head, whether you have money or not. You're always being fed, whether you have a penny in your wallet or not. You're being taken care of, supported with all of the time. Because that's how you live. People can come to you and gift you something, and then you gift them something back, and now you've made their day. Now that you've given them such joy because of your experience that you've shared, and they've given you something out of joy. It could be a meal, it could be a wonderful gift, whatever it may be. You've received it. And now you understand authenticity. You're doing it for the sake of simply being yourself. Not trying to be something that you're not. You're not a corporate overlord. You're not a cheating affair husband or wife. You're not one who is thriving to try and find the great almighty dollar and try to get wealthy. Trying to have all of these relationships only so that you can satiate a carnal lust. These are all illusions. These are addictions. They're not real. And that's what the earth is trying to show you as you crawl through the trenches. Showing you what the real is once you see that glimmer of light past the veil. To have you so curious that you pull it out and say, oh, that's it. I've had this aha moment. I've had this download. I've had this realization. This isn't the way. And I need to see that deeper. And I need to let go of these things. I need to surrender to them. And behold the authentic path that you walk. That is what it is to be human on this planet. Is to go through your trenches, see them for what they are, stand up on your feet, wash yourself off, and look in the mirror and behold God. That's why you're here. That's why all of you are here. All right? We thank you for your question. All right, well, that was powerful. Thank you very much. You're the Fire Horse for your question. Let's go ahead and move on. Okay, I think that's all we got for donations that I can see. Let me just double check on the live stream here. Okay, making sure I'm not getting a wrong reading here. Okay, no, we're good. All right, let's go up to the free questions now. You're the Fire Horse. You already had your question, so I'm going to try and find somebody else here. Question, how will Ethereum rise next year if Bitcoin is crashing? It never happens that way in crypto. Well, again, Didar, this is something that I've explained again previously. The reason why Ethereum is going to do so well is because the Fire Horse year that's coming, right? If we're looking at Chinese astrology, my friends, everything's based on numerology and astrology. The reason being is because those are the codes. Those are the imprints of life, primarily the power of number. Okay? You have to understand exactly how the world works, Didar. Okay? You have to understand exactly how vibration, frequency, and energy work. And you have to understand how number is being the medium for vibration, frequency, and energy. If you don't understand that, then what I say to you will not matter. Okay? The idea of saying that something never happens in crypto is an absolute viewpoint. And that's not looking at it in the idea of its gradient. Okay? So, if I'm basically telling you that we are looking at numerology and astrology and taking a look at the idea of Ethereum, pertaining it to it doing pretty good next year, it's because the alignments of energy work in its favor. Okay? When you look at the nature of the Fire Horse, Ethereum is compatible with that particular sign, which means it's not going to be affected by any downtrodden energetic blockages like Bitcoin is going to next year. Okay? And you guys don't have to believe me. You can wait until you see next year. And then that way, I mean, that's the proof of the pudding right there, right? When these things happen. But I'm telling you that besides Ethereum, Bitcoin is not going to have a good year. Okay? And anything that is an association with Bitcoin is also not going to have a good year. Now, you've heard me say that, and that's all there is to it. Okay, Brad, we'll see. Yep, that's it. That's all I can tell you. Okay? And my suggestion would be prepared maybe to sell some of your Bitcoin before that time comes. But when we look at Ethereum, Ethereum is a different cat because it has a much more appropriate vibrational harmony with next year, like we see in Chinese astrology. Chinese astrology, it represents the year of the Fire Horse. Ethereum is compatible with that. And Ethereum is going to do well. Okay? Not only next year, but the year after that too. 2026, 2027 are going to be good years for Ethereum. Okay? Now, you can debate me on this until the cows come home. I don't care. Because what I look at is I look at its energy. Not only am I just looking at its numerology and its astrology, I'm also looking at it through the records. Right? If I tune in for a moment, and if I go into Ethereum, and if I just ask the Akashic Records to share with me how Ethereum will be doing in 2026, okay? I'm seeing this, okay? Which means it's going to go down a little bit, and then it's going to go up, okay? So it's like a little check mark, down, up, okay? That's how I'm seeing it through the Akasha. So even through the Akasha, I'm seeing it doing pretty well. It's going to do quite well. next year. And it's going to continue to prosper in 2027. I don't care if you guys believe me or not. This is just exactly what the energy is, right? I'm only giving you guys suggestions here. I'm not being your personal steward for crypto or anything of that nature, right? I'm not a crypto financier. I'm not a crypto guru or anything of that nature. I just look at energy. It's no different to me than anything else, right? If I'm looking at the energy of a person, I'll get an impression about what they're doing, of how they're doing, etc. If I'm looking at the idea of a piece of food that's in front of me, I'll tune into its energy and I'll see if this is a good thing to have, right? If I look into an event happening in the world, I'll tune into its energy to take a look at it. I'll tune into cryptocurrency's energy and take a look at it. And then again, I'll run the numbers through numerology and astrology as well too. But then I'll also put it together through the Akashic Records. And I say what I say, right? So how will it rise next year? Well, like I said, I feel like a lot of things are going to move in its favor. It may have new partnerships. It may have new joint ventures. It may again have new people who are favoring it a great deal. It is in a year of favor, right? So I feel like people are going to be behind it quite a bit. I think Ethereum is going to get more of a boost than Bitcoin will. Do I think Bitcoin is going to be completely destroyed? No, I don't think Bitcoin is going to be completely destroyed, but it's going to have a very rough year, right? So because it's not compatible with the Fire Horse year, right? So it's going to be having some trouble in 2026. That's all I can share with you guys. Other than that, like I said, the idea of thinking, oh, this never happens in cryptocurrency. Well, Didar, with all due respect, you have to understand how life really works, okay? If you start looking at life the same way that I do, where you understand that everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, and that there's cycles that exist, and then when we start going into those cycles, these are going to be rough tides for certain subjects, again, people, places, events, or things. They're going to go through the rough tides because they're not compatible, they're not synchronous with that particular cycle. They're going to get hit with that heavy grain, and it's going to slow them down, right? It's kind of like looking at a person who's in a race, and all of a sudden it's like they're running in jello. They just can't move. They can't move. They're still moving, but they're kind of sludging along in the way. Well, that's the idea of how cycles work. If you guys don't base the nature of life on these understandings, I'm speaking Martian to you. Okay? You have to know exactly how energy works. You have to know exactly how numerology works. You have to understand how astrology works. You have to look at the idea that here I am, and maybe I'm going into a year that may be quite challenging. And now I'm noticing that things are not coming my way. Things are being delayed. Things are not being able to snap into grid as they were, say, the previous year, right? There's nothing wrong with me. It's just the idea that a lot of the energies that are working together with me are not compatible with the biofield that I'm radiating. Because everything's got a biofield, my friend, right? Whether something that feels living or dead, even something that's dead was created by something living, like cryptocurrency. It represents an entity. And that entity has energy behind its creators. And those particular creators, when they go into an enemy sign representing the idea of the fire horse, that they're going to have a lot of challenges. They're going to have a lot of rough spots. Doesn't mean they're going to be completely 100% debilitated and everything's finished for them. But they're going to have some very, very rough times ahead. It's rough waters. So again, trying to explain this can only truly be understood when a person realizes the nature of vibration, energy, and frequency. When they understand the nature of consciousness, when you start working together with numbers and you start looking at its patterns, when you start looking at astrology and you see exactly what sign or what house is aspecting the other and how there can be resistance there and how you can have enemy signs and you can have enemy planets and you can have enemy aspects and all of that. You have to know these things. If you don't, I'm speaking Martian to you. Right? So again, I'm using my language that I understand, being the energetic language, telling you guys these things. But it's up to you if you want to say, okay, it's cool. I'll radiate with that, or I'll put it in the back burner. Totally cool with me, whatever you do. Right? I'm sharing my language. That's all I'm doing. Okay? Hope that helps you. Okay. Okay, Samara here says, hey Adronis, the recent flooding in Punjab, India, were they intentionally caused by the people in power? Okay, so here's what I'm going to say to you guys, because this is something that Adronis has talked about many times, and he's also given away kind of a lot of the secret about that. All disasters that you are seeing right now, 99% of them are man-made, include what's happening together right now with the flooding in India. Okay, that is weather technology. That is storm technology. That is all about them being able to create an attack on India in that way. Very rarely are you seeing Earth actually doing these things of her own accord, because Earth really doesn't even have any say-so to her weather patterns anymore. 99% of her weather patterns on this planet are being constantly manipulated by a weather manipulation grid. Okay, that grid comes through satellites, it comes through HARP technology, it comes through scalar, it can come through electrolysis, it can come through many different ways. But the entire weather grid on our planet right now, 99% of it is human controlled. Only about 1% may go through the Earth naturally. But especially with what is happening here in India, because it has flooded before, not too long ago, that too is a sign of an attack. So yes, India has had earthquakes, it has floods, it has had fires, it has had typhoons, all of them man-made, all of them artificial. Okay, these are engineering things that are happening. Okay, they're basically trying to break India apart. They're trying to separate her, trying to break off more of here, more here, more here, trying to get all these other things to separate, so that the wealth of India basically becomes forgotten in the future. That's basically what they're trying to do. And as soon as I say this, my browser cuts out. Okay, I think I'm back on. My browser cut off there for a minute. So as soon as I'm talking about India and what they're trying to do, I get cut off. So what is that telling you guys? I think Brad's telling you something here, because that's what they're trying to do with India. They're trying to break her off. It's not just the idea of what happened between India and Pakistan. They're trying to take it even more further. They're going to try and break off every particular facet of India so that India doesn't exist anymore, because that's the wealth of spiritual knowledge on the planet. Are they going to succeed? I don't think so. But nonetheless, that's what they're attempting, right? They're going to basically try to create wars. They're going to try and create floods. They're going to try and create weather problems. They're going to create all of these particular problems for India, trying to bring it into a state of discord, into separation. It's an attack on India. It's been happening for a very long time because it is the spiritual epicenter of life on this planet. And so they're trying to break it apart. This is where we have to come in. This is where we have to hold the line. This is where we start working with frequency, energy, vibration. This is where we work with consciousness. This is where we keep that together. We work with India, right? We keep the collective consciousness of that alive. We inspire people to make sure they hold on to what is dear. And India is very dear. Okay? So Samara, I hope that helps you. But yes, completely artificial, engineered weather technology. Okay, here's one from Eve. Eve says, hi Brad, could Adronis please kindly discuss whether there's any need for milk children? Milk children, I don't know what you mean. Aside amino acids, base minerals, and vitamins. How did wise cultures meet the food needs for little people? Okay, I think that should be the question we should look into, because I don't know what you mean by milk children. How did wise cultures meet the food needs for little people? Okay, one moment. Thank you very much, Eve, for your question. When you're looking at the idea of the ancient cultures, when you're looking in the times going back centuries, how children were fed, well, it was very common in that sense, we would say, for children to be breastfed well into a couple of years old. So the idea of the mother from the milk sustained a lot of the children, quite on average up to about 2 to 3 years of age. That was quite common. And when you're looking at many of the quote-unquote indigenous societies knew about the herbal kingdom. They would only hunt based upon the idea of helping to feed the many. But when they hunted animals, they would not be eating the muscles and the tissues of the animals. They would be eating the organs of the animals. And even when they have the organs, they would accompany that with many beneficial herbs that would help together in sustaining themselves. This is exactly why a lot of the indigenous people have longer lifespans than your common folk today. Simply because they knew how to work with the earth. They planted the necessary herbs around them and harvested them. If they decided to hunt an animal, it was only to hunt for the people. It was never for one person's greed. They may basically hunt an antelope and kill it, and then harvest its organs. And then working together with that, pertaining to the herbs that they would have, they would create a mixture. You see, the only particular viable nature of minerals within an animal's body would actually be found in the organs and not in the tendons or muscles or tissues to which the majority of the human race is feeding on today. It was organ meats. The organs basically had a little bit more, not a lot more, but a little bit appropriate minerals in that way. But again, this was actually done on rare occasions. The idea of many of the indigenous cultures primarily worked with herbalism. They worked with herbology. They worked with plants. They planted a lot of their own food. And that sustained the little ones. They would be given little broths, or again, depending on their age, they would be giving small amounts of food as well too. But there would not be the idea of what you would refer to as a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or an evening snack. That's unheard of. Quite commonly, it would really just be a midday meal. And that would be it. They're not gluttons, trying to feel that they have to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. And basically what you're doing is you're poisoning and poisoning and poisoning and poisoning and poisoning your body by constantly doing that. It usually was a one-day meal feast that would feed many. It's not about the idea of a family being around the supper table and having this food just for the husband, the wife, and the daughter. Would not work that way. It's the idea that a feast fed the people of that tribe. The people of that village would come together and they would share in the feast. It is not at all how you live today. At all. So basically, you're looking at the indigenous people, the people of the ancient past, being very well nourished. They were actually far more well nourished than many of you are today because their food was pure. There was no GMOs. There was hardly any hybrids. Everything was being firmly planted within the earth and then harvested at the right time. If an animal was taken down, that animal was blessed. And there would be a harvesting of organs. And they would also use other parts of the animals quite commonly for tools. Very different life back then. So again, what's happening now is that humanity has been indoctrinated. They have basically been, in that sense, domesticated. You're domesticated to eat the rubbish food that you're constantly eating. Because the majority of food on your planet right now that's feeding millions is all rubbish. It's all garbage. It's all toxins. It's all chemicals. It's poisons. 90% of your food source on this planet is rubbish. And the only ones that are really going to prosper forward are ones who learn to plant with the earth. The ones who are making their own gardens. The ones who may participate in community gardens. Maybe supporting your farmers as well too. Getting farmed foods. Again, depending. Because again, there's still certain hybrid foods that you need to be aware of. But altogether, looking back into the ancient times to how the children were being fed, they were being more nourished back then than your children are today. Because they did not need to worry about metals. They did not need to worry about GMO. They did not need to worry about poisonous states of wheat. They didn't fear any of that because that wasn't there. All of this starch and basically trying to feed off tissues and muscles of animals. If you tried to do that back then, someone would have thought that you were crazy. He's eating the tissues of the animal. You do know that's where all the poisons are, right? And you don't. So this again is very important to know. That again, even if it came down to the consumption of an animal, it would lead to the organs. Even when you look at a lion consuming a zebra, they're eating the zebra's organs and nothing else. That's how they sustain themselves. They won't dare touch tissues or muscles or ligaments because that basically contains toxins, poisons, that gets into your system and that slowly deteriorates your body. And this is not being explained in your modern science. It is so much the idea of thinking that mainstream science is trying to support the idea of people eating meat if they want to get their protein. And we would say to them, define what protein is. And they couldn't do it. Because all you're really doing is you're ingesting acids, uric acids, phosphoric acids, sulfuric acids. That eats away at your tissues. That slowly kills your kidneys. That inflames your digestion. That purges out fibrous content in your body. That makes you more and more irritable. That depletes your energy. Your body becomes toxic. The odors from your body become horrendous because you're toxic. Look at many of your athletes who have spent through their 20s and 30s and 40s trying to bulk up and have all of this muscle. What happens when they reach their 50s? Their heart starts to go. Their liver starts to go. Their kidneys start to go. Their back starts to go. Their muscles start to bloat and therefore causing more problems with your own endocrine, digestive, circulatory, and lymphatic systems. Start to become toxic. Hardly anybody on your planet knows how to live properly anymore. This is what we're saying, is that you have all been domesticated. And in order to break through with that, you need to learn to what your ancestors have done. And you start moving into alkaline foods. You start bringing the pure foods, ones that are not GMO, ones that are not hybrids, ones that are the pure foods, the pure herbs. That's what you start ingesting. And then as you do that, you get off this addiction of food, thinking that you have to fill your body with food every 20 minutes. And now you start to feel good just by one meal a day with the occasional tea or the occasional smoothie, with a lime and spring water concoction, drinking that down each and every day. You feel on top of the world. You feel great. And you're not addicted to the food. In fact, you can feel that you're actually going to eat less and less. The only reason why you want to eat more and more is because that's part of the addiction. You eat a hamburger, you want another hamburger. You eat a bunch of French fries, you want more French fries. You eat a bunch of chicken nuggets, you want more chicken nuggets. You drink a bunch of beer, you want more beer. And it goes on and on and on and on. That's a drug. You're not eating food, you're eating drugs. So this again is what needs to change. So not only are we elaborating in regards to the idea of what children went through in the younger ages because they were a great deal healthier, but looking into the idea about why this has changed. And this is why we're suggesting that you're looking into the alkaline, that you're looking into the electricity, that you're looking into minerals. The body does not care about fats. Does not care about managing sugars or calories or carbs. That is all nonsense. It's about minerals. It's about electrical, highly pranic foods. It's about the alkaline. That's what's going to change your body. And you can start at any time. Does not matter if you're 60, 70, 80, 90. Right now, just by getting started with this, between now and the next 3 to 6 months, you start eating clean, your body will be healthier more than it's ever been before. And that comes through alkaline. That comes through understanding the nature of the terrain body and not the bogus germ theory that has been shoved down your throats for generations. That is absolute bunk. And that too needs to be realized. So children back then, very healthy, breastfed from their mother, even in older ages. And again, 1 meal a day for the community. Happiness, joy, bringing about these beautiful plants, these beautiful herbs that were planted with love, and a community that supported one another. That's the idea. All right? We thank you for your question. Okay, everybody, we are out of time for today, so I want to thank you all for your questions. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, again, the presentation today about the age of Pisces moving into the age of Aquarius and the transition of these next 50 years, 2000 to 2050. So again, I'll be back next week for another Wisdom Nexus episode. Again, go ahead and feel free to check out the Indiegogo campaign for RAYD8 Amrita. We're nearly there on our goal. So again, like I said, once we get the full 10,000, I'm already putting down half the amount. So again, the other half coming from you guys, and we can start working together with this and making it beautiful and amazing and having an incredible technology to share. And again, feel free to check out wisdomtransmissions.com, private live sessions, 3 questions by email, and energy cord attunements. And again, I'll be putting a video up here this week once Anointed Ray is done, and then you guys can check that out too. Thank you guys. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your presence today. Thanks for joining me on this Saturday, and I'll speak to you again next week. Namaskar. May it be well with you. Take care.